The laughter echoed across the firing range when Staff Sergeant Olivia Reed picked up the M24 sniper rifle. At 32 years old, with auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun and calm green eyes that never wavered, she had heard variations of this mockery her entire military career. "Maybe try something lighter, ma'am," said Sergeant Parker, a muscular recruit with a Texas drawl and a cocky smile. His buddies snickered behind him, watching the woman they assumed was just another support staff pretending to be a shooter. "That M24's got a kick that'll knock you on your ass." Olivia didn't respond immediately. Instead, she methodically inspected the weapon with practiced efficiency. Her fingers moved across the rifle's cold metal, checking the bolt action, verifying the scope mounting, running through the pre-firing checklist that had become second nature over years of training and combat deployments. The Fort Carson firing range stretched out before her, targets positioned at various distances across the Colorado landscape. 12 recruits stood in formation, all male, all in their early 20s, all carrying the confident swagger of soldiers who'd qualified with rifles and basic training and thought that made them snipers. "I'll make you a deal," Olivia finally said, her voice calm and measured. "3 shots, 300, 600, and 800 meters. Different targets, different conditions. After I demonstrate, each of you will attempt the same shots." Parker grinned, exchanging glances with his fellow recruits. "And when we outshoot you?" Olivia allowed herself a slight smile, the kind that should have warned them they'd made a terrible miscalculation. "Then I'll recommend all of you for advanced sniper training immediately." She chambered around with a smooth, practiced motion. "But when I outshoot you, you run the obstacle course in full gear. Twice." The sun hung high in the Colorado sky, casting harsh shadows across the firing range. The wind picked up slightly from the east, about 8 miles pod, a challenge for novices, a variable to be calculated for professionals. As Olivia settled into position behind the rifle, her mind wasn't on the recruits or their laughter. She controlled her breathing, finding the natural respiratory pause her father had taught her years ago. Through her scope, she tracked the first target at 300 meters, standard infantry qualification distance. She squeezed the trigger. Perfect shot. Center mass. Moving to the second position, she faced the 600-meter target, now well beyond standard infantry qualification, into the realm where true marksmanship began. Wind had increased to 10 mph. She made adjustments for windage and elevation, then fired again. Another perfect shot. Center mass. The final position placed her before the most challenging shot. 800 meters, pushing the M24's effective range to its limits. Olivia took her time, observing wind indicators downrange, calculating the necessary holdover for bullet drop, factoring in temperature, air density, and the Coriolis effect. She fired. Through the spotting scope, all 12 recruits could see what she already knew. Another perfect shot. Center mass at 800 meters under variable conditions. The range had gone completely silent. That's professional level shooting," Parker said, voice suddenly respectful. "Yes," Olivia replied simply. "It is. Now, who's first?" Over the next hour, all 12 recruits attempted the same 3 shots. The best of them, Parker, managed to hit the 300-meter target center mass and get close on the 600-meter shot, but missed the 800-meter target entirely. Most couldn't get consistent hits at 600 meters. As they finished, looking dejected and facing the promised double obstacle course run, the range door opened. Colonel Blake walked in, followed by Colonel Jenkins, a hard-faced man with steel-gray hair and the weathered features of someone who'd spent decades in special operations. The recruits immediately snapped to attention. "At ease," Colonel Blake said, then looked at Olivia. "Sergeant Reed, I see you're running the new recruit evaluation." "Yes, sir. Just finished the qualification shoot." Colonel Jenkins walked to the spotting scope, examining the targets. His eyebrows rose as he saw the three perfect hits at 300, 600, and 800 meters. Whose shots are these? Mine, sir, Olivia replied. Jenkins looked at the recruits, then back at Olivia, then at the targets again. A small smile crossed his face. Did you gentlemen know who you were shooting against today? The recruits looked confused. Parker spoke up. Sir, we were just doing our qualification evaluation with the sergeant. With Sergeant Reed, Jenkins corrected. Did she introduce herself properly? Just said she was running our evaluation, sir. Jenkins turned to Olivia. Sergeant Reed, these young men seem unaware of who you are. Would you mind if I provided some context? Olivia shrugged slightly. Your call, sir. Jenkins addressed the recruits directly. Gentlemen, let me tell you about Staff Sergeant Olivia Reed. She holds every long-range shooting record on this base. She has 47 confirmed kills across 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. She's qualified as a Special Operations Support Marksman, which means she's trained alongside some of our most elite units. He paused, letting that sink in, then continued. But here's the most important thing you need to know about Sergeant Reed. She's the daughter of Master Sergeant Nathan Reed, call sign Ghost, one of the finest Delta Force operators this country ever produced. And she's the best shooter I've ever commanded in my 30 years of military service. The recruits' faces had gone from confused to mortified. Parker looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. Jenkins wasn't done. I came here specifically to discuss with Sergeant Reed a new role we're developing. The reason many of our special operations personnel are as effective as they are is because of marksmen like her, who can provide overwatch in conditions most shooters would consider impossible. After the recruits were dismissed to run their punishment course, Jenkins and Colonel Blake asked Olivia to join them in private. Sergeant Reed, Jenkins began, your demonstration today reminded me why I came here. We need you at Fort Bragg as the lead instructor for a new advanced sniper training program. You'd be training not just Army snipers, but cross-service students from Marines, Navy, and Air Force. Olivia felt both honored and hesitant. Sir, I appreciate the opportunity, but I should mention I've received similar offers before. There's always institutional resistance to a female lead instructor. Jenkins leaned forward. I won't lie to you. You're right. There will be resistance. But that's exactly why we need you in this position. Colonel Blake added, Olivia, you've been proving yourself for years. This assignment puts you in a position to shape training in a way that focuses on capability over demographics. What neither man knew was that for Olivia, this assignment represented something far more personal. For 15 years, she had been searching for the truth about her father's death. Officially listed as a helicopter accident in Afghanistan in 2003. This position at Fort Bragg might finally give her access to the classified information she needed. I'll do it, sir. July 1991. 14-year-old Olivia Reed sat cross-legged on the carpet, eyes fixed on the television. Operation Desert Storm footage played across the screen. Reporters described the American victory in Iraq, the liberation of Kuwait. Among the Special Operations Forces shown briefly, a tall figure whose face remained carefully out of frame. The reporter never mentioned his name, referring only to elite Delta Force operators. But Olivia knew that was her father, Nathan Reed, known to his unit by the call sign Ghost. 3 months later, he returned home. Changed. A shrapnel wound in his left shoulder, nightmares that woke him shouting in the dark, the 1,000-yard stare that sometimes took him away from family dinners and birthday celebrations. But there were good days, too, like the autumn morning when he took Olivia to the family's property in rural Colorado, carrying a case containing a Remington 700 bolt-action rifle. Dad, are you sure Mom's okay with this? Olivia asked, eyeing the weapon case nervously. Nathan Reed smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. Your mother knows you're growing up. Besides, learning to shoot isn't just about weapons, it's about discipline, focus, and respect. He opened the case, revealing the sleek rifle inside, the civilian predecessor of the military's M24. With practiced hands, he assembled it, explaining each component, each function, each safety protocol. The most important thing to understand, Nathan said, placing the rifle in her hands for the first time, is that this weapon doesn't care who's pulling the trigger. It doesn't know if you're a man or woman, tall or short, strong or weak. It only responds to proper fundamentals. He positioned himself behind her, adjusting her stance, her grip, the placement of her cheek against the stock. Breathing is everything, he continued. Inhale. Exhale partially. Hold. That natural respiratory pause is your window. That's when you're most stable. Olivia squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The target 100 yards away remained untouched. Again, Nathan said, patience in his voice. Remember what I said about fundamentals. By sunset, Olivia had hit the target 3 times. Not center mass, not consistently, but enough to spark something inside her. A connection to the discipline, the focus, the strange mathematical poetry of sending a small piece of metal exactly where you intended over vast distances. You've got a good eye, Nathan told her on the drive home. Better than mine when I started. The fundamentals became ritual over the next 7 years. Every weekend they could manage, Nathan took Olivia shooting. As she grew more proficient, he introduced new challenges, different distances, variable wind conditions, moving targets, the physics of ballistics. He taught her about minute of angle adjustments, about the Coriolis effect on long-range shots, about the way humidity affects bullet drop. Knowledge acquired through decades of military service, through training programs the public would never know existed, through combat experiences he could never fully describe. September 12, 2001. The day after the towers fell, Nathan Reed, retired for nearly 5 years, received a phone call. Olivia, home from college for an impromptu family gathering in the wake of national tragedy, saw her father's expression harden as he listened to the voice on the other end. I understand, he said finally. Yes, I'll be ready. He hung up and met his family's questioning gaze. They're activating certain retired personnel. Special consultants, they're calling it. Olivia's mother turned away, understanding immediately what most Americans wouldn't. This wasn't about patriotic gestures. This was about sending the country's most experienced operators back into the shadows. 2 years later, in the spring of 2003, 3 officers in dress uniforms arrived at the Reed home. Olivia, now 26, opened the door. She knew before they spoke. The formal expressions, the carefully neutral tones, the envelope containing her father's posthumous medal. We regret to inform you that Master Sergeant Nathan Reed died during a helicopter accident in Afghanistan. His service to his country was exemplary, and his sacrifice will not be forgotten. The official story, clean, simple, a tragic accident during a routine transport mission. But Olivia had grown up with a Delta Force operator. She'd learned to read between lines, to notice inconsistencies, to question official narratives. At the funeral, she met some of her father's former colleagues. Men with watchful eyes and firm handshakes who spoke of Nathan in careful, edited anecdotes. One of them, an older man with steel-gray hair and weathered features, approached her after the service. James Wilson, he said simply, I served with your father in places I'm not supposed to talk about. Olivia studied him. You don't believe it was a helicopter accident, do you? Wilson's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, respect. Your father always said you were perceptive, too smart for your own good sometimes. He handed her a business card with only a name and number. "If you ever need anything, Olivia, anything at all." She kept the card, and 3 months later, she enlisted in the United States Army. Olivia's first combat operation came 3 weeks into her deployment to Afghanistan, a routine patrol through a village suspected of Taliban activity. The ambush came at mid-morning. Insurgents hidden in buildings on both sides of the narrow street. The patrol's point man went down immediately, shot through the shoulder. The unit commander took shrapnel from an improvised explosive device. Moments later, Olivia, positioned at the rear with her spotter, found herself suddenly the highest-ranking operational soldier. Through her scope, she counted at least 15 attackers, too many for their 8-person patrol to handle in a frontal assault. "Miller," she called to her spotter, a skeptical corporal who'd made no secret of his doubts about serving with a female marksman. "We need elevation. That abandoned building to the north. Second floor should give us coverage of the entire street." Miller hesitated, clearly uncomfortable taking orders from her. "That's an order, Corporal. Unless you've got a better idea how to keep our people alive." They reached the building under covering fire from the remaining patrol members. The second floor offered a clear view of the village center where their team was pinned down. Olivia set up her position near a broken window, calculating distance, wind speed, and bullet drop. Her first shot caught a Taliban fighter moving between buildings. Clean center mass, instant kill. The second shot hit a machine gunner targeting the patrol's medic. Third shot, another insurgent. Each target acquired, each shot precise, each threat neutralized with mechanical efficiency. Miller's attitude changed with each successful engagement, his initial reluctance transforming into grudging respect as he called out new targets, adjusted for changing wind conditions, and watched Olivia make shot after impossible shot. 8 confirmed kills in under 15 minutes. The remaining Taliban fighters retreated, unwilling to face the unseen sniper who seemed able to strike from anywhere. When the dust settled and reinforcements arrived, the patrol's wounded commander, Lieutenant Parker, requested a debriefing with Olivia. "Those were some of the most difficult shots I've seen anyone make under combat conditions," he said from a stretcher, voice strained through pain. "Where did you learn to shoot like that, Sergeant Reed?" Olivia thought of her father, of weekend lessons on rural Colorado hillsides. "I had good teachers, sir." The incident report mentioned her role in neutralizing the ambush. Commendations followed. So did whispers. Some soldiers respected her skill. Others questioned whether a woman should be in such a role. Olivia ignored the gossip. She had more important concerns. Each patrol, each mission, each conversation with local interpreters brought her incrementally closer to information about her father's final operation. Fragments, whispers, references to a classified mission codenamed Eclipse. During her off hours, she compiled notes in a small leather-bound journal. Locations, names, dates. Gradually, a picture began to emerge of a high-risk operation targeting not Taliban leadership, but something else. Something involving a Russian name that appeared in multiple accounts. Petrov. Fort Bragg. 2005. The facility itself was underwhelming. A cluster of weathered buildings, some dating back to World War II. A firing range that had seen better days. Equipment that appeared at least a decade out of date. "Not quite what you were hoping for," James Wilson said, approaching with a coffee cup in one hand. In the years since their first meeting at Nathan Reed's funeral, Wilson had risen to master sergeant and maintained discreet contact with Olivia. "I've worked with less," Olivia replied, surveying the facility again. Inside the briefing room, 5 men sat around a conference table. 4 of them stood as Olivia entered. The 5th, a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with close-cropped gray hair and the weathered face of a career soldier, remained seated, arms crossed over his chest. "Gentlemen," Wilson said, "allow me to introduce Staff Sergeant Olivia Reed, Your new lead instructor. The standing men offered handshakes and introductions. Master Sergeant Thomas Wilson, ballistic specialist. Sergeant First Class Michael Rodriguez, fieldcraft instructor. Sergeant Carlos Mendez, technology integration specialist. Sergeant Brian Taylor, medical and survival instructor. The seated man finally rose, his movements deliberate, almost challenging. Captain Thomas Carter, he said without offering his hand. Tactical operations. Olivia recognized the name immediately from her research. Carter had served with her father in Delta Force, had been on several classified operations with him in the late 1990s. Captain, she acknowledged, meeting his gaze directly. I've heard about your work with Delta. A flicker of surprise crossed Carter's face, quickly replaced by suspicion. And I've heard about your achievements. 47 confirmed kills if the reports are accurate. The implication was clear. He doubted the authenticity of her record. The reports are accurate, Wilson interjected. I verified them myself. Carter shrugged. No disrespect intended. I simply wonder whether exceptional circumstances in the field translate to exceptional teaching capabilities. Before Olivia could respond, Wilson placed his briefcase on the table. General Jenkins believes they do, and since he outranks everyone in this room, I suggest we focus on implementing his vision rather than questioning it. Carter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Of course. We all want the program to succeed. The tension in the room was palpable as Wilson outlined the program objectives. A 3-month advanced course designed to train elite marksmen from across all military branches. The Reed method, they're calling it in some circles, Wilson explained, nodding toward Olivia. Integrating advanced ballistic science with environmental awareness and psychological conditioning. The Reed method, Carter raised an eyebrow. Named after Sergeant Reed, I presume? Rather presumptuous for someone so new to the teaching side of operations. Olivia kept her expression neutral. Actually, it's named after my father, Master Sergeant Nathan Reed, Delta Force. His approach to precision shooting formed the foundation of my training. I've simply expanded on his techniques. The mention of Nathan Reed's name changed the atmosphere in the room. Even Carter seemed momentarily disarmed. Nathan Reed was your father? Sergeant Taylor asked. Ghost himself? Man could shoot the wings off a fly at 1,000 meters. A distinguished lineage, certainly, Carter recovered quickly. But we're developing a modern training program, not trading on past glories. I'd like to see Sergeant Reed's curriculum before we proceed further. Olivia distributed folders containing her proposed training methodology. Everything she had learned from her father, from her own combat experiences, meticulously documented. This is unorthodox, Carter said after reviewing the materials. You're proposing significant departures from established protocols. Established protocols designed primarily for male shooters with specific physical attributes, Olivia countered. The core of my approach is that with proper technique and understanding of ballistic science, those physical differences become largely irrelevant. Carter closed the folder. Theory is one thing, practical application is another. I'd like to see a demonstration before we commit to overhauling our entire curriculum. Fair enough, Olivia agreed. The range tomorrow night. A practical field scenario. As the meeting adjourned, Wilson hung back with Olivia. Carter is going to be a problem, he said once they were alone. He was in line for this position before Jenkins appointed you. I'm not surprised, Olivia gathered her materials. But if he's as professional as his reputation suggests, he'll put the mission above his personal feelings. Wilson's expression suggested he wasn't convinced. There's something else you should know. Carter served with your father. Olivia stopped packing her briefcase. When? Early 2000s. They were part of the same Delta unit for a while. I don't know the details, but there was some kind of falling out between them. Bad blood. This was new information. In all her research into her father's career, Carter's name had never surfaced in connection with any discord. Why are you telling me this now? Wilson leaned closer, lowering his voice despite the empty room. Because I've been doing some digging of my own about Operation Eclipse, about what really happened to your father. And Carter's name keeps appearing on the periphery of the mission documentation. Olivia felt a chill run through her. Are you saying he was involved in my father's death? I'm saying be careful. Watch your back. Later that night, Olivia added this new information to her journal. The connection between Carter and her father was potentially significant. If Carter had been part of the Operation Eclipse team, he might have information about Petrov and the true circumstances of Nathan Reed's death. As she reviewed her notes, a pattern began to emerge. The scattered references to Operation Eclipse all pointed to a classified mission targeting not just Petrov, but a broader conspiracy involving biological weapons research that had continued after official programs were shut down after the Cold War. Names appeared and reappeared across different reports. Petrov, obviously, but also someone referred to only as the facilitator, in whispers of a project called Mercury. The next evening, Carter's tactical challenge unfolded in the vast training area of Fort Bragg. Darkness had fallen, and the scenario was clear. Olivia and Sergeant Miller, serving as her spotter, were to infiltrate a simulated enemy compound, identify and eliminate 3 high-value targets, and extract without being detected by opposition forces. What wasn't standard was Carter bringing in actual Delta Force operators, men he'd worked with for years, as the opposition force, stacking the deck against her. Using night vision to navigate the unfamiliar terrain, Olivia and Miller established their first observation post overlooking the main compound area. They spent 20 minutes mapping patrol routes, identifying blind spots, establishing timing patterns, standard infiltration preparation. Over the next hour, they identified all 3 high-value targets, tracking their movements, establishing patterns. Then they executed with surgical precision. 3 shots, 3 kills, all from positions carefully selected to maximize concealment and escape routes. But as they prepared to move toward the extraction point, something changed. The opposition forces, instead of acknowledging the successful completion of the scenario, began converging on their position with unexpected precision. They shouldn't know our location, Olivia whispered. Miller scanned the area with his night vision. Multiple teams approaching from different directions. This isn't part of the standard protocol. Carter changed the parameters, Olivia realized. He's making this personal. They quickly gathered their equipment and began a tactical retreat, moving away from the approaching opposition forces, standard evasion techniques, utilizing terrain and concealment to break line of sight. But the opposing forces moved with the coordinated precision of experienced Delta operators. They know our extraction point, Miller realized. They're not trying to find us. They're setting up an ambush on our exfiltration route. Olivia processed this information quickly. Carter had given them the extraction coordinates, presumably shared those same coordinates with the opposition forces, a trap designed to ensure she failed the exercise. New plan, she decided. We're not going to the designated extraction point. We're creating our own. Miller looked surprised but nodded. Lead the way. They moved quickly, using every technique in their Special Operations playbook to evade detection, covering tracks, using water features to break scent trails, creating false leads. After 40 minutes of careful navigation, they reached the western boundary of the training area. No sign of opposition forces. They're still focused on the designated extraction point, Miller observed. We've got a clean route north. As they approached their self-designated extraction point, Olivia noticed something unusual. A single figure waiting in the darkness, barely visible even with night vision. It's Carter, Olivia said. He's alone. They approached cautiously until they were within speaking distance of the captain. "Creative solution, Sergeant Reed," Carter said as they approached. Most candidates would have continued to the designated extraction point, right into the waiting opposition force. "Most candidates haven't spent time evading Taliban counter-sniper teams in the Hindu Kush," Olivia replied. "The mission parameters specified reaching the northern boundary, not a specific extraction point." Carter nodded. "Technically correct. All three high-value targets eliminated. Successful extraction completed within the time limit. By any objective measure, you've passed the evaluation." There was something in his tone, a reluctant acknowledgement that she hadn't expected. For the first time since meeting him, Olivia sensed genuine respect beneath the antagonism. As they walked back toward the base facilities, Carter unexpectedly spoke again. "You remind me of him, you know. Your father." Olivia glanced at him, surprised by the personal comment. "You knew him well?" "We ran dozens of operations together. He was the best I ever worked with. Uncompromising, though, especially on matters of principle." There was something in the way he said it, a mixture of respect and what might have been regret. "What happened between you two?" Olivia asked directly. Carter was silent for several steps. "A disagreement about how to handle sensitive intelligence. Nathan believed in absolute transparency, following every protocol, reporting every finding up the chain of command. Admirable, but sometimes naive. And you disagreed. In our line of work, certain information is too sensitive, too easily misinterpreted. I advocated for a more measured approach." Before Olivia could press further, they arrived at the administrative building. All lights were on in the briefing room, voices audible even from outside. A late-night meeting that hadn't been on the schedule? "Looks like something's up," Carter said, his demeanor shifting back to professional detachment. "Report for debriefing at 0700 tomorrow." After Carter left, Olivia circled back, curious about the unscheduled meeting. Through a window, she could see Wilson, Carter, and the other instructors gathered around the conference table. Colonel Jenkins was present as well, speaking via video conference on a large screen. She moved closer to the window, straining to hear what was being said. "Confirmed sighting," Jenkins was saying. "Intelligence is certain. Petrov is alive and operational." Olivia froze at the mention of that name. "Location?" Carter asked. "Caucasus region, near the Russian-Georgian border. Remote compound, heavily secured. He's resumed his research, apparently with new backing." "Mercury?" Wilson asked. Jenkins nodded on the screen. "Intelligence indicates the Mercury protocol is active again. Biological agent development, potential delivery system for urban targets." "Just like Operation Eclipse," Carter said quietly. "History repeating itself." "Exactly," Jenkins confirmed. "Which is why we're activating a response team immediately. This time, we finish what Ghost started." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This wasn't a coincidence. The sudden emergency meeting about Petrov, about Mercury, about her father's final mission, it connected too perfectly with her own investigation. "Team composition, sir?" Carter asked. "Special task force, cross-service. Best people we have." Jenkins leaned forward on the screen. "I want Sergeant Reed as primary sniper." A murmur went through the room. Carter looked surprised but not outraged. "Sir, with all due respect," he began, "Sergeant Reed is an excellent marksman, but this operation requires someone with more direct experience in these kinds of missions." "Someone like you, Captain?" Jenkins asked. "I have relevant experience. I was part of Operation Eclipse. I know what we're dealing with." "Precisely why you'll be tactical commander," Jenkins replied. "But Reed has demonstrated exceptional capabilities in extreme environmental conditions. The Caucasus location will require shots at ranges and in conditions that few snipers can handle reliably." Carter appeared to accept this reasoning, though reluctantly. "Understood, sir." Good. Full briefing tomorrow at 800. Team deploys within 48 hours. Olivia moved quickly away from the window before anyone inside could notice her presence. Her mind raced with implications. Petrov alive. Mercury active again. A mission directly connected to her father's death. And she was being assigned as the primary sniper. That night, Wilson secretly met with Olivia in her quarters, bringing a small flash drive. "I shouldn't be showing you this," he said, "but you deserve to know." The drive contained classified documents about Operation Eclipse and her father's final mission. Most shocking was a photograph showing a younger Carter standing alongside a tall, thin man with cold eyes and a scholar's bearing. The background suggested somewhere in Eastern Europe or Russia. Viktor Petrov, Wilson identified. This was taken in 2001, after Petrov supposedly cut ties with American intelligence. Carter maintained contact, apparently without authorization. Olivia studied the photograph. They look like colleagues, not adversaries. Exactly my concern. The official record states that Carter was injured during Operation Eclipse before the extraction helicopter was shot down. But what if he wasn't injured? What if he orchestrated the attack? The implication was staggering. You think Carter betrayed my father's team, had them killed to protect Petrov and the Mercury research? I think the evidence points in that direction. But as Olivia continued reviewing the documents, she found something even more disturbing. Correspondence between the facilitator and someone using a code designation that matched Colonel Jenkins' signature pattern from other classified communications she had accessed. It's not just Carter, she realized aloud. Jenkins is involved too. He's the facilitator. Wilson looked stunned. That can't be right. Jenkins is the one who's been pushing for this mission to eliminate Petrov. Or is he pushing for a mission to ensure there are no loose ends? Think about it. My father discovered something about Mercury that threatened Jenkins. Now I'm being sent into the same situation. The implications were chilling. The very mission that was supposed to bring justice for her father might be a trap to eliminate her as well. "So what do you do?" Wilson asked. Olivia considered her options. "I go on the mission. It's my best chance to find concrete evidence, but I need your help." She outlined her plan, a dangerous counterplay that would require perfect execution and absolute secrecy. The military transport plane hummed steadily as it cut through night skies over the Black Sea. Inside the dimly lit cargo hold, Olivia methodically checked her equipment for the fourth time since takeoff. The Chaytak M200 intervention rifle was a marvel of engineering, capable of effective shots beyond 2,000 meters in the right conditions, firing 408 caliber rounds with devastating accuracy. Carter sat across from her, now reviewing tactical maps with Miller, who had been assigned as Olivia's spotter for the operation. The team was small but elite. Besides Olivia, Miller, and Carter, there was Navy SEAL Lieutenant Jackson for close-quarters battle, Army Rangers Wilson and Cooper for security and extraction, and CIA field operative Dr. Eleanor Weiss, an expert in biological weapons who would identify and secure research materials. 20 minutes later, they were dropping through darkness into the rugged Caucasus Mountains. Olivia positioned herself in the jump formation, mind focused on the mission parameters. At exactly the right moment, she deployed her parachute, feeling the expected jolt as the canopy caught air. Under canopy, she navigated toward the designated landing zone, a small clearing approximately 15 kilometers from Petrov's compound. By 0400 hours, they had reached Observation Point Alpha, a rocky outcropping providing excellent sightlines to the compound nearly 2 kilometers away. Olivia and Miller immediately began setting up their sniper position while the others established a concealed forward operating base. Throughout the day, Olivia maintained her professional focus, establishing precise firing solutions for every potential engagement point. tracking security patrols, documenting patterns. Movement at the main entrance, Miller reported suddenly, peering through his high-powered spotting scope. Black SUV arriving. 4 security personnel and a civilian. Olivia shifted her rifle, bringing the scene into focus. The civilian was tall, thin, with the scholarly bearing she recognized from the photograph Wilson had shown her. Target confirmed, she said calmly. Petrov just arrived. Carter joined them at the observation post, examining the scene through his own optics. Positive identification, he agreed. Dr. Weiss confirms facial recognition match with intelligence photos. Olivia continued observing as Petrov entered the main building. He appears comfortable, not concerned about potential threats. Security is professional, but not on heightened alert. Carter nodded. Good news for our infiltration. We proceed as planned at dusk. At dusk, Olivia eliminated the perimeter guards with surgical precision, creating the entry corridor for the assault team. Carter led the team forward, breaching the fence at the predetermined point, advancing toward the main building with practiced coordination. Inside the main building, Carter's voice came over the comm. Moving to basement level. Laboratory entrance located. Breaching laboratory. Everything proceeded according to plan, almost too perfectly. Olivia maintained her vigilance, watching for any sign that this operation was something other than it appeared. Then she saw it. A helicopter approaching from the north, flying without lights, coming in low. It wasn't in the mission brief. There should be no air assets until extraction. Unidentified helicopter approaching from the north, she reported. Not on the mission parameters. Carter's response was delayed by several seconds. Acknowledged. Continue monitoring the perimeter. The helicopter landed behind the main building, out of her direct line of sight. Olivia adjusted position to get a better view, and what she saw confirmed her worst fears. Colonel Jenkins emerged from the helicopter, moving purposefully toward the main building entrance. Miller, Olivia said quietly, not transmitting. Hold position and maintain overwatch. I'm moving to the secondary observation point. That's against protocol, Miller objected. Protocol changed when Jenkins showed up unannounced. Trust me on this. Olivia moved silently through the darkened forest, circling to approach the compound from a different angle. She established a new position with sightlines to the laboratory windows. Through her scope, she could see Jenkins, Carter, and Petrov in animated discussion, not as adversaries, but as colleagues reviewing technical diagrams. Dr. Weiss worked at a computer terminal, downloading data. The modification to the delivery system is brilliant, Jenkins was saying, examining diagrams. Completely undetectable until activation. The beauty is in its specificity, Petrov replied, his accent thick but his English precise. Target selection at the genetic level. And the timeline for full production? Carter asked. 6 months with proper funding and facility security, Petrov answered. The prototype is functional but limited in scope. Resources you'll have, Jenkins assured him. The Istanbul facility is already being prepared. Olivia felt cold certainty settle over her. This wasn't an operation to stop Petrov. It was an extraction. Jenkins and Carter weren't eliminating the Mercury protocol. They were securing it, transferring it to a new location under their direct control. And her father had discovered this conspiracy years earlier, had threatened to expose it, and had died as a result. Before she could decide her next move, Dr. Weiss spoke. Transfer complete, all research data secured. Excellent, Jenkins replied. Prepare the samples for transport. The helicopter will be here in 20 minutes. And the rest of the team? Carter asked. Jenkins' expression hardened. Standard protocol. No witnesses, no loose ends. Wilson and Cooper are still at the secondary facility, Carter noted. Jackson at the entrance. and Reed still at her Overwatch position with Miller. Once the charges are set, they'll have no warning, Jenkins said. Clean, simultaneous elimination of all potential complications. Like father, like daughter, Carter commented, his tone chillingly casual. Nathan Reed discovered too much about Mercury. We couldn't risk exposure then, and we certainly can't now. The confirmation of her father's murder, spoken so callously, sent a surge of cold rage through Olivia. Her suspicions confirmed in the worst possible way. She retreated silently from her observation position and activated her comm on a secure channel Wilson had set up before the mission, one that bypassed the standard tactical frequency. Wilson, Jackson, Cooper, mission compromised. Jenkins and Carter are working with Petrov. They're planning to eliminate the entire team. Charges set somewhere in the compound. Wilson's response was immediate and professional. Understood. Moving to secure Dr. Weiss and the research data. Meet at the secondary extraction point in 10 minutes. Olivia circled back toward the main building. She had one shot at this, literally and figuratively. The element of surprise was her only advantage against 3 armed conspirators. She entered through a basement window she had identified during her recon. Moving with the stealth techniques perfected in Afghanistan's mountains, she approached the laboratory. Through the partially open door, she could hear Jenkins giving instructions. She stepped into the doorway, rifle raised. Nobody move. The 4 occupants froze, turning toward her with expressions ranging from shock to calculation. Mitchell, Carter recovered first. What are you doing here? You were ordered to maintain Overwatch. Orders changed when I discovered you're working with Petrov, not eliminating him, Olivia replied, keeping her rifle trained on the group. When I heard you discussing how you murdered my father to protect Mercury. Jenkins's expression shifted from surprise to cold assessment. You've misunderstood the situation, Sergeant. This is a complex intelligence operation with compartmentalized objectives. Save it, Colonel. I heard everything. The extraction plan, the charges set to eliminate witnesses, the transfer of Petrov's research to Istanbul. Jenkins laughed, the sound cold and dismissive. Exposed to whom? With what evidence? Even if you survive this confrontation, it's your word against a colonel's. Unless I've been recording this entire conversation, Olivia said. Unless every word you've spoken is being transmitted to secure servers beyond your reach. It was a bluff, but a calculated one. Jenkins couldn't know for certain whether she was recording or what preparations she had made. Reynolds, deal with this situation. Now, Jenkins ordered. Carter moved, hand dropping to his sidearm. Olivia had anticipated this, had been watching for precisely this moment. She fired once, the sound deafening in the confined laboratory space. Carter dropped, a precision shot to his shoulder, incapacitating him without killing. Next one isn't non-lethal, Olivia warned, swinging her rifle back toward Jenkins and Petrov. On the floor, hands visible. Jenkins remained standing, calculating odds and options. You won't shoot a superior officer, Reed. Your entire life has been defined by military discipline, by following the chain of command. My entire life has been defined by seeking justice for my father, Olivia corrected. By developing the skills necessary to complete his final mission. Hands on the floor, Colonel. Last warning. For a moment, the outcome hung in balance. Then Jenkins made his decision, moving not to comply but to draw his own weapon. Olivia fired again. Another precision shot, incapacitating without killing. The colonel fell, clutching his leg where the bullet had struck. Dr. Weiss raised her hands immediately. I'm a scientist, not a combatant. I was following orders. Petrov alone seemed unperturbed by the violent confrontation. Impressive marksmanship, Miss Reed. Your father would be proud. He too had remarkable accuracy under pressure. You knew my father, Of course. Nathan Reed tracked me across 3 countries before locating my previous research facility. A worthy adversary. His elimination was regrettable but necessary for the continuation of Mercury. The distant sound of helicopter rotors became audible. The extraction Jenkins had arranged arriving on schedule. That would be our transport, Petrov observed. Your time is running short, Miss Reed. Not my transport, Olivia replied. Yours has been canceled. The laboratory door burst open. Wilson and Jackson entered, weapons ready. Behind them, Cooper secured the corridor. All clear, Wilson reported. Research data secured. Charges located and disarmed. You set me up, Jenkins said, looking at Wilson with newfound understanding. No, sir. You set yourself up when you betrayed everything you swore to protect. When you had Nathan Reed killed to hide your involvement with a biological weapons program designed to target specific genetic populations. Olivia secured Jenkins and Carter with zip ties, ensuring their wounds were incapacitating but not life-threatening. Justice would require them to stand trial, to face the consequences of their actions legally, rather than dying here in Petrov's laboratory. You won't succeed, Jenkins said through gritted teeth. This is bigger than you understand. Powerful people are invested in Mercury. Perhaps, Olivia conceded. But my father believes some principles are worth any risk. Worth dying for if necessary. I share that belief. 6 months later, Olivia sat in the gallery of a Washington, D.C. courtroom, watching as the trial of Colonel Jenkins and Captain Carter reached its conclusion. The evidence had been overwhelming. The files recovered from Petrov's laboratory, the testimony of Dr. Weiss in exchange for immunity, the recordings Wilson had secretly made during the planning of the operation. Jenkins received life imprisonment for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and illegal weapons development. Carter, in exchange for full cooperation that implicated dozens of others involved in the Mercury Protocol, received a reduced sentence. Petrov remained in a specialized detention facility, his knowledge deemed too dangerous to ever be released. The official record now acknowledged Nathan Reed's death as occurring during an operation to prevent illegal biological weapons research, not a helicopter accident. His name had been added to memorial walls, his service recognized with posthumous honors. Outside the courthouse, Wilson approached Olivia. Your father would be proud, you know, not just of your shooting, but of your integrity, of finishing what he started. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied. What will you do now? Olivia looked toward the Capitol dome, gleaming white against the blue sky. Go back to Fort Bragg. Continue training the next generation of marksmen. Teach them what my father taught me, that the most important shot you'll ever take isn't on the battlefield. 5 years later, Olivia Reed stood at the Fort Carson firing range, watching a new class of recruits prepare for qualification. Her auburn hair now had strands of silver at the temples, and the calm green eyes had seen more of the world's darkness than most would experience in a lifetime. But she remained the best shooter in any room she entered, the standard by which others measured themselves. A familiar face approached. Parker, the recruit who had once mocked her, now a staff sergeant himself. Master Sergeant Reed, he saluted. I'm here to assist with the new sniper qualification course. Olivia returned the salute with a slight smile. Welcome back, Parker. Ready to show these recruits how it's done? He shook his head. I think I'll leave the demonstrations to you. That day on this range, when you outshot all of us, when Colonel Jenkins told us who you really were, it changed everything for me. Changed how I thought about capability, about what determines excellence. Olivia nodded toward the firing line, where a diverse group of recruits waited. Men and women selected not based on preconceived notions of what a sniper should look like, but on demonstrated aptitude, on potential, on the qualities that actually determine success in precision marksmanship. My father taught me that a rifle doesn't care who's pulling the trigger, she began, echoing the lesson Nathan Reed had shared with her on a Colorado hillside decades earlier. It doesn't know your gender, your background. It responds only to proper fundamentals, to discipline, to understanding the mathematics and physics that govern a bullet's path through space. She moved to the firing line, picking up an M24 sniper rifle, the same model that had started everything on this range years ago. Today, I'm going to demonstrate what's possible when you master those fundamentals, when you refuse to accept limitations others try to impose based on how you look, who they think you should be, what they believe you can accomplish. Olivia settled behind the rifle, finding that perfect stillness, that complete focus that had defined her career and saved her life in countless situations. And then she pulled the trigger. The shot that followed, a perfect hit at 1,000 meters in variable wind conditions, wasn't just a demonstration of skill. It was a continuation of Nathan Reed's legacy, a promise that excellence was achievable regardless of who said it was impossible, a reminder that sometimes the best sniper in any room might be the person everyone underestimated right up until the moment they pulled the trigger and proved everyone wrong.